Boom.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? It's your man Kevo with Leif Taylor here, having our regular conversation about all things health, wealth, relationships, and happiness, and everything else in between. Whatever it is that you're doing in life, we will touch on that subject and topic, just because that's a part of being human, and we like to explore and be curious and leave our options open as far as where we go in our conversations, but we always start off with on a home based topic on
Yep.
the launch pad. And today, Leif, we're going to start a conversation off just talking about hope and how hope is a key or an essential mindset that can help be insurance, thought insurance when it comes to going through tough times. And a number of things is kind of, that's gotten me going in this direction is that number one, I sent you a link to an article. You might want to bring it up at some point in time
Yep.
by on Dr. Curl Leaf's blog. And she talks about hope and and through her practice, some of the things that people exemplify, some of the characteristics that people exemplify, they help them stay hopeful uh, in face of a lot of the tough situations that she's seen people go through. And I started thinking about that, and that made me think about, today I had a conversation with a friend who he's a farmer and he owns a farm, he runs a farm,
Okay.
and he's going through a really tough time right now with with cancer. And I was just looking at his attitude and how hopeful he was as far as his expectation and what he was looking forward to in the face of the situation that he's going through and some of the things that he's experiencing, some of the symptoms that he's exemplifying with treatment.
Yep.
And I'm just looking at how that his attitude and his mindset as is very strong, resilient in face of some of the things that the doctors had told him. They told him as far as the things that he would be experiencing and some of the things that he's going to feel and go through. And it's like just talking to him, you could tell that the negative things or the things that aren't in his favor, they just kind of just bounce off of him as far as his beliefs and his thoughts and his feelings. And I was just thinking about, man, that's really powerful, and it's really a good example of what Dr. Curleaf talks about in this article that I was looking at, as far as hope and how important it is that you cultivate that mindset, especially in today's world. I'm thinking about where we are right now. If it's December, and a lot
Yep.
of people right now are starting to reflect on the previous year and then starting to look forward to what's to come. If you don't have a hopeful outlook about what's to come, you're going to have a hard year ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? But if you do have a hopeful outlook, no matter what's going on, you can find yourself thriving, not only just surviving, but thriving in these times. And when I say thriving, it don't have to. A lot of times people will automatically go to the finances, but when we talk
Yeah. Yeah.
about thriving, we're talking about, as we talk about your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your sense of well-being, your sense of purpose
The whole
in
human
this
being.
world. Yeah, the whole being. So we're talking about all aspects of your humanity when we're talking about thriving. You might not hit 100 in all of those pillars and all those areas, but just know, as long as you are working towards 100 in all those areas, that works just as well. Versus if you don't have a hopeful outlook, Leif, you ain't gonna be hitting 100. You're gonna be hitting negatives, and
Yeah.
it's by default. It's by default that if you aren't, um, thinking about moving forward, moving towards the hitting the 100 on all those pillars in your humanity, then just by life in and of itself, it will drag you down, throw obstacles in your way. It will do whatever it has to do to test you, to try to sift you as wheat. And we don't want that for you. So that's why we have these conversations, because Kevin has been sifted as wheat and he's coming back to tell the tale to have these conversations of like, man, I got sifted hard, bro. Don't do this, do that if you can. So these are just conversations, not from my successes, but from my failures and my getting folded up like a lawn chair. I'm thinking about wrestling. All my sons are in wrestling, and if they don't have a hopeful outlook on a match, then you're gonna get folded up like a pretzel. It's not good. So the life will do you like that if you don't have a hopeful outlook. And hope defined, I guess we can start with a definition of having an expectation. Usually it's one of pleasure or something good. So yeah, we'll start with there as far as hope. So it's good in today's world to have that, because if you don't, you're going to be setting yourself up for some tough times. And we could talk about, Leif, some of the things that help you cultivate a hopeful mindset in your life too. But I'll stop there.
Yeah, so hope is definitely a good one, especially at any time of the year, right? But especially like now, there's always a new headline of a new something that's happening in the world.
Well, that's another thing that made me think about this and kind of cogitate on it, is that we are in an era of cognitive warfare. And I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that based on some articles and stuff I've been reading, that we're in an era where if you aren't adamant about guarding the messages and the thoughts that are in your personal space, you will be subject to just weapons of mass distractions that can get you off on all kinds of get you all worked up in all kinds of ways. And you brought up one of the recent, a headline that's out now about what's going on. And I just noticed that it can set you in a place of fear and anxiety and not be hopeful about what's to come.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's not just that, but like you said, weapons of mass distraction. Hope requires focus, right? And whenever you get off focus, then that's when you can start losing hope on outcomes and things. The thing like back in the civil rights era, was to keep your eyes on the prize, right? And when you take your eyes off of that prize, then you get so swallowed up by the circumstances around you that you lose sight on your direction. And so you got to have that beacon uh, to go after in order to make it through the tough situations. And again, situations are just situations. Whether they're tough or not is how you perceive them. And so, when we think about life, sometimes I myself have to take a step back and realize, like, hey, everybody's just living. Whether it's any particular era, you're still living. Times can be rough or be great in whatever era you're living in, and start controlling those things that you can, so that you don't lose hope. Because the article, we'll go over the article points, but just some of the points in the article, just really just points out the reason why people have certain kinds of hope is because they take autonomy in certain areas of their life, and it makes them feel less out of control, right? When you don't control any aspect of your own life, then everything is at the whim of somebody else. But when you realize that you're the one that can control a lot of the outcomes in your life, then that gives you some sense of grounding, some sense of like, okay, I know that this may be happening, but this is what I can still do, as opposed to, waiting to see what it does to you. You can figure out what you can do to it in whatever situation that you're in.
Man, so one of the ways that you can stay hopeful, like you said, is realizing, and whatever way that you can, some sense of self-empowerment and self-reliance. Of course, you're not going to be able to hit, again, 100 in every area of your life, but that's why community is important. But just as best you can, start building, instilling in yourself some degree of self-empowerment and self-reliance, and that can go a long way as far as feeling like you said, like you having some control over a lot of the outcomes in your life. I think I really came into clarity and realization about that. I don't know, I guess a few years ago, of just how important it is to cut ties with Babylon as much as you can. Cut all the tethers. As you're not going to get all of them, but start working on the ones. Start working on the low hanging fruit as far as your ties to the system of dependency. And we're all if you're in the Western world, we're born into a system that is indoctrinating with respect to dependency and having you be dependent on the system. As long as you're dependent on the system and the way things are, then you're dependent and you have no control, and you're at the whim of whatever decision maker or whatever comes along, whatever agenda is in play and affecting you at the moment. But when you realize that and you start working on ways to distance yourself from dependency on the system, then you become empowered, and that gives you a hopeful, helps you build hope in your life, in that, hey, I can affect my life in some ways that I want to, and not just in the ways that has been impressed upon me.
Yeah, and also, as you were talking, it just started making me think about the importance of shelter, right? In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it talks about shelter and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the autonomy piece, is if you have some sense of control in a small space, right? That's a start. So
Yep.
the home is like the first part of protection for most people, and it gives a sense of comfort, even though all it is literally just four walls most of the time, right? And
Yeah.
it's not real security, but the perceived security of your home and the perceived autonomy empowers you to do other things. And so that's why, like, again, I've already read the article, but it's stuff that I already know as well. But that's why
Oh yeah.
ownership, yeah, that's why ownership is important, in terms of, like Kevin said, getting yourself away from dependencies, is because when you own things, it gives you a sense of value. It gives you a sense of control. It gives you uh, a sense of, okay, I can do this by myself, kind of thing. Even though you don't want to do it by yourself, but at least it can start there, right? And not only that, but your shelter is usually the place where your community is gathered around. And so community is something that we talk about nonstop. Like every episode, I don't think we've done an episode without talking about the importance of community.
It's number one.
Yeah, it's always number one. And so
That was one of the things that was crystal clear to me when I really woke up, as far as to the ways of the world and how important, and also because of my background too, it really brought into clarity how important community is. If you don't have it, man, it's just,
yeah,
man, it's not good.
at all. And so, like for me, like my I call it my business gospel is networking, and networking is really just building community. And
Yeah.
a community of friends, a community of people that have like mind, like thrives, whatever. And that's huge. Family is a small part of that community, right? Like
Yeah.
my family and my house, and same for each and every person that's raised in a family. So it's like you slowly start growing from the nucleus out, and God bless you if you got a good family, and God bless you even more if you don't. And so those things are very important, because you can't make it in this world alone. Anybody that says that they can is a liar, because everything that we utilize involves other people to some degree, whether it's through a factory. And there were people at those factories that made the things that you utilize. Whether it's money,
Going
money
back to
is,
the house you talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, money comes from
Money
from
built
other
it.
people, right? The house. Most people don't build their own house with their own tools. There are people out there that do,
Yeah.
but
Most.
Yeah, most don't. And even the fact that you're here today means that other people have helped you. The fact that we're on social media, the internet, all those things, other people built those things, right? And so,
Trillions of dollars of infrastructure, and
yeah,
we just.
and so you can't take that for granted, So, in your independence, you have to realize the sense of a need for a community. Otherwise, you're running blind, right? And then also just, one of the things that I do in terms of having hope in any given situation is just I like to face the reality of it. And what I mean by that is I like to gather, it's like, okay, if things look bad, I want to know how bad it is. And then I can see how worse it could have been. Right. And, and so just assessing that, it's like, okay, I at least know where I can start building my base from. If I'm at the bottom of the cliff, then I know I can start going up. If I still got more to fall, then I got to stop myself from falling further, and then I can assess on going up. So just having a base of where you are, accepting your circumstances can help you, just be be settled and move forward. Because again, one of the things I know from a psychological perspective, when you start talking your problems out loud, they
Man.
become less perilous, right? The more you talk about it, so the more you identify it, the more that you face it for what it is. It can take the stress away from it. And so identifying and accepting where you are in any given situation is empowering as well, because now you can start formulating on solutions, right? For example, even today, I ran into an issue on a project, and one of the guys working for me, he was, he
So
was right, and I'm like, okay. He was like, I'm not going to be able to hit this deadline. I'm like, that's unacceptable, right? And so instead of just like panicking, it's like, okay, let's assess where we are. What are the problems? What are the things? Let's get creative about a solution, because it can't be that difficult, right? And so ended up figuring out a solution that would take almost no time, right? But unless you assess the problem, then it just feels like you're constantly slipping. And so you just want to make sure that you accept where you are, and then you can start thinking rationally about how you can forge ahead and get out of the situation.
man, when you was talking, I was thinking about some of the situations I found myself in over the past, as far as like just looking at the situation for what it is. Like, dang, man, this is tough. But hey, we once you embrace, that's one of the points too, in the article talking about the courage to embrace pain.
Yeah.
Individuals who embrace rather than suppress, their feelings are often more hopeful. They tend to embrace and process their fears, uncertainty, and pain, and turn these feelings into positive action, often making a difference. So just being able to just look at the situation, but
Yeah.
that was something at one particular job that I had. Anytime a tough situation or a circumstance came up, this one guy would just go like you punched him or something, like he really felt it. And then
Yeah.
after he did that, he just went into like solution mode. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's the problem. Let's go into solution mode. And he just and then he went to solution mode.
Taking those
So I was like,
advantage.
okay, I like his mindset. I can take that. I can use that. So yeah, it's just one of the things you're talking about, having the courage to embrace the situation for whatever it is. And you talked about worst case scenarios. I'm always thinking about worst case scenarios, and
Yep.
in doing that, that makes me grateful for wherever I'm at in a situation. It's crazy. No
Yeah.
matter how bad something is, when I think of the worst case scenario, I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. It could be worse.
Exactly. Yeah. Like getting shot at, so that's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, in doing that, that just makes, that just adds a whole new layer of gratefulness to a situation. Shauna says, community and self-sufficiency definitely go hand in hand. Growing a garden is huge in self-sufficiency. You both know I can go on about that subject. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm the same way about even though I don't have a garden, and we've talked about the many failures in the past of my my happenings, but I'm a fan of gardeners, and God bless the green thumbers out there. I definitely appreciate and love you guys, and keep doing what you're doing because I like good food. And yeah, being able to grow your own food to some degree, having some kind of autonomy on over your food is definitely a number one as far as staying hopeful. Who was it? I think it was Kissinger or somebody said that control the food, you control the people,
Yep.
control the oil, you control the nation, or something like that, a saying like that. But yeah, when you control somebody's food, or when somebody has control over your food, if the big box, I used to think about this all the time. If the big box store in your neighborhood shuts down, where are you going to go for food for a lot of us? And that's that's a tough question for a lot of us when it comes to food, being self-sufficient, and feeling self-empowered. So yeah, when you have some degree of control over your food source, that's definitely a way of staying hopeful. Man, during hard times, if you got a full stomach, you can almost endure anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you start
Real.
messing with somebody's stomach, then those tough times get worse.
Yeah, because it changes your focus. It shifts it immediately.
You can't
I know
focus.
for me, I know for me, it's like, yeah, it's like I focus on getting food. and, and going back to just like what you were saying, what it made me think about in terms of like, growing your own food is empowering. I remember when I got laid off years ago, uh, being able to create my first check was empowering, right? And because it let me know that I can do this, right? And it's like, okay, just figure out what you did to get that one and get another one, right? And so just like little things, man. It's like little, like, I know the scripture talks about, like, small rewards of faith build upon other faith, right? Because it always references, the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. But if he could do those things, then he can do these things too, right? And
Yeah.
so when you've experienced, like, blessings or miracles in one situation, then you use associative thinking, meaning that, okay, if this happened in this situation, it can happen here too, right? And that in and of itself is empowering, because now it gives you a point of reference. It gives you a base to go forward in whatever the obstacles are. Even in sickness, one of the things that my wife and I used to testify about a lot was, like, we had a friend that, she was told that she couldn't have a child. And of course she had a child, and my wife, the doctor said that she can have children. Like, we didn't know that the doctor didn't know my wife didn't think that she would ever conceive until after we had our kids. Then she told us,
Wow.
she was like, oh, this is a miracle, because I didn't think you would ever have any kids.
Wow.
Right. And especially about the way that it happened. But
Yep.
again, going back to our friend, the fact that, going to the community aspect, the fact that something was done for somebody else, it gives you hope that it can be done for you as well. So instead of worrying about whatever the situation is, you can now focus on the solutions. You can focus on the abundance that is to come, as opposed to wallowing in the misery that you feel that you're in. And again, those things give perspective, because, like you said, when you start thinking about the worst case scenario, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. It could be worse. This could have gone wrong. This could have gone wrong. Going back to when I said I got laid off, I was like, okay, we got a house bill, we got new children, but we still have each other. So if all this material stuff is gone, then who cares? We still have each other. We can figure this out. I got here before, we can get here again. And so again, just assessing those things, having a base of where to go, it just empowers you, man. Yeah, I mean, I can't even make it even more plain than that. It just empowers you.
Yeah, it's very empowering. So going through some of the points as far as how to cultivate, or some of the things that hopeful people exemplify, is that one we touched on was having having the courage to embrace the pain.
Yep.
Another one is being able to live live an examined life, being able to stand back and examine and assess. She says that people who can stand back and get perspective on where they are going, what they are doing, and what they want from life tend to be more hopeful. And I posted something the other day just talking about being able to think and taking the time to think, because if you don't, then you're just like you're operating on instinct and you're operating on a reactive level versus a responsive level. So just being able to take some time and examine some things in your life, that goes a long way as far as hope.
Yeah. What does that look like?
What do you mean?
Like, what does examining like your life look like? Like, what would somebody do?
Like finding yourself repeating patterns and finding yourself in a situation. Maybe a common phrase is, "Man, why does this always keep happening to me?" Or "Why is my these are some of the common phrases that you might find yourself saying, like, "What? Why me? What is going on? Why always this seems to be something in my life?" And then a lot of people just keep on rolling, and then just keep on going. And there's some people like, "Hold up, wait a minute. Let me examine some things and think about me and think about some patterns and some things that I'm going through in my life to help me get through a certain, get through a situation or kind of make some changes." To examine means to, look at that, take apart, think about, meditate on, contemplate about, see what can be done differently. And, that kind of speaks to when you were talking about community and positive testimony, and that you can look to other people and how they got through or what some of the things they did in order to manifest that positive action in their life, and kind of take from that versus just keep on moving.
It's the same thing like with reading books, right? We live in an age where there's plenty of people telling their life stories of how they got to where they are, and you can use them as an example. You can use their testimonies as an example of how you can start navigating your own life.
But if you don't take the time to sit back and examine, then you won't even get to that point of looking for counsel or looking for ways of escape, ways to change, get out of. Some other things.
Go ahead.
I was going to talk about having a sense of ownership. We touched on that already. The people who feel that they own their lives, that they are the authors of their own story, tend to have more hope than people who do not have a sense of autonomy. And if you don't have a sense of autonomy, that's like a slave, a subject mentality where you feel like, woe is me. I'm at the whim of something or somebody else, versus somebody who says, you know what, there's a lot of my life that I have control over and that I can make decisions about and that I can affect some change in. So she said, people who cultivate that, they tend to be more hopeful, or people who are hopeful tend to exemplify, that they have a sense of ownership in their life. Another one is inspiration. Individuals who are inspired to do something that is bigger than who they are often have a sense that there is something to live for that is bigger than just them or what they are going through, which often gives them more hope. And that's something that I've learned over the years, is that it's easier to get through tough times when you take the focus off of yourself and you start focusing on other people and start seeing where you can fulfill a need versus seeing where you can have a need met.
Because even in that, it's you're still taking control, right? It might not be of your own situation, but having ownership that helps somebody else is empowering as well. And not only that, is just reflective, right? Having empathy for others takes the focus off of your own problems. I know one of the most life-changing experiences I ever had was when I was in Haiti and helping people. And it just made me realize that, you know what, my life is not bad at all, right? You know, the things that I was worried about pale in comparison to some of the things that some of these people are going through. And it just literally just shifted my mindset, you know, for the better. Uh, and it was just like, man, even helping people around your city, even helping your kids sometimes can make you feel a sense of empowerment. And it's like, you know what, I do have a purpose. I do have, you know, a reason for being on this planet. And so that's definitely a good thing. And plus, you need uh, that kind of mindset to form a community anyway. You know, like you said, you're not a green thumb person, right? So, you
Mhm.
know, having people that like, man, poor Kevin, let's give him some. You know, my wife's always trying to give Kevin food, and I'm like, don't do that. But but just having
Don't feed them. You'll make a dependent.
exactly. But just having, you know, just having a mindset of empathy as well. And, you know, it just helps you like, okay, I know I'm not strong in this area, but this person over here is, but I'm strong in another area that I can help them with. And just being able to give to people, again, it just takes away from your own issues. And not only that, the sense of camaraderie of a community can actually help you deal with the brunt of whatever the situation is. I mentioned the civil rights movement earlier, and it was all about community. It was like, hey, you know, as a divided people, we're getting beat up, we're getting in prison, we're going to jail, we're getting lynched, we're doing all of these things. But if we come together, then we can overcome, like, you know, talking about inspiration and living beyond your current self. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you know, I'm willing to die for my brother, my sister, and these kinds of things. And it helps you get past your fears and your insecurities because you have a greater moment to live for. So that's very powerful.
Yeah, look, so it's very important to cultivate looking for ways to be inspired in this life. If you live an uninspired life, life can be dull and you won't be hopeful with respect to, you know, situations and tough times. You know, I was driving downtown in Louisville today and I seen a sign that said, um, it was something to the degree of, you know, it had the picture of 65 bullets and it
Hmm.
said like 65 people a day shoot themselves or commit suicide with a gun or something like that. And it
Hmm.
just made me think of how, you know, the suicide rate and how it's shot up over the last couple of years. It's been going up, but like it's like exponentially shot up over the last couple of years and how important it is. It just made me realize how important it is to cultivate hope. Because if you don't have anything to live for that's bigger than yourself, then all you focus on is yourself, and you realize, you know, that that's not good. And talking, I was thinking about, you know, talking about suicide,
Yeah.
and I was listening to a bodybuilder. I think it was Flex Wheeler.
Okay. Yeah. I
Um,
need flex.
he was
Yep.
and he was talking about suicide and how he was suicidal for you know, a large part of his life, even after he had experienced, you know, getting the money, getting the fame, getting, you know, living that successful life, you know, even at that time how he dealt with suicide. And he this is kind of a sidebar. He was just talking about how he was thinking about suicide, and the, you know, he said he was going to do it, and there was an inner voice that he heard that said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it so you can be with me." And he said when he heard that, that was one of the things that made him start the journey or the path of not being suicidal. He's like, "Wait a
Right.
minute, what is, you know, what do you
Yeah.
mean? What are you talking about?"
Well, that's creepy. Yeah. It's scary, right?
Yeah, and it just speaks to the importance of how important it is that you guard your thoughts, you examine your thoughts, and you guard your mind. And that a lot of thoughts and mind, you know, a lot of thoughts and messages that uh, come through our brains, a lot of it's not ours. You know,
Yep.
you don't know where those thoughts are coming from. So it's important to take captive, you know, these thoughts and examine them and see if there's something that that's yours and that you want to build a belief on. And when you do that, you start to get, you know, your emotions follow and then your behaviors follow.
Yeah, and going back to when you was talking about earlier, you know, we live in a time of mass distraction. It is very important that you take control over the things that you take in, right? You know, communications. Even the scriptures talk about evil communications and those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you can control those messages that you have, you know, instead of having television or a streaming service or whatever, or even two shy guys tell you and dictate to you, you know, what you should be thinking about. Cut that stuff off and you choose what you empower yourself with, right? You choose what you put in your brain in terms of reading, in terms of writing, in terms of activities. Choose those things. Turn off all of the constant noise that is surrounding you, because now it doesn't stop at all. It doesn't turn off. And so you have to be ever more cognizant of the kinds of things that you take in. You know, spending a lot of time on social media is proven to be dangerous. It's proven to be unhealthy for people. And so you have to understand that, and being around a community can help you see those things, right? So if my man Kevin overcomes something, he can point that. He's like, hey, bro, like, you know, I don't think you should be doing that, and here's why, right? You know, which is what he said earlier. You know, he's been folded and chopped in a lot of ways, and so have we all. But you know, if we don't, you know, point out those bad habits or those things that we see, you know, leading us astray, uh, then we could fall subject to those, like, those mental health issues that accompany being on the internet 24/7.
Man, when you was talking, I'm gonna ask you. So, you know, given how dangerous we know where we're at with respect to social media, internet, how dangerous it can be.
Yep.
What do you think will happen with the next level as far as the metaverse? And I mean, it has to be big, given that Facebook has changed. They rebranded to Meta. So how much harder would it be then? I mean, given that, you know.
So again, I have, like, you can probably see the Oculus box behind me. So I have all of that stuff as well, you know, even with my kids. But the way you combat that stuff, again, is being purposeful in what you do, right? Become a master, not a subject. And the way you do that is, I always tell my kids, like, if they're creating, we'll let them create 24/7. But if they're consuming, then we have to stop it, right?
Okay.
We have to have intervals and breaks and those kinds of things. So ask yourself, whenever you're doing anything, am I being a consumer, or am I being a creator or a producer, right? If you're consuming all the time, then it means somebody's controlling you. I was reading a book by Myron Golden, and one of the things he always says is, he said, who's putting more money in your brain? Are you putting more money in your brain, or are you watching so much, you know, are you consuming so much that these advertisers and these shows and everything else that's going on is what's putting that information in your brain? Whoever puts the most money in your brain owns you. And so, going back to the self-control and the autonomy, you want to make sure that you control every facet of your life in terms of what you allow into your, it's like the scriptures say, into your eye gates, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to, like, whether it be setting limits, I mean, because think about it, even Apple, they have, like, focus things attached to their computers now, to where you just click focus, to where it stops all notifications, it stops all of these things, so you can just focus on the thing in front of you. So you have to be very mindful, because it's easy to get caught up, it's easy to get swept up, and the metaverse will just make it easier, in terms of getting yourself surrounded by, you know, all of these digital things that you may not necessarily control. Uh, I'm interested in the metaverse because I'm making stuff for it. Right?
Yes.
That's my interest, right? And so again, that's always my way of balance, is like, am I being a producer or am I being a consumer? If I'm teetering over the edge of consumerism, then I have to take a step back. And so that's just what I use personally. But you have to be mindful, get other people around you, because they will notice a change in you if you start going down a certain path. It's like, hey man, I just noticed, you know, I don't see you around too much.
Well, hey, Ted, you ain't left the house in a month, bro. What's going on? Oh man, I'm thinking about the movie Surrogates. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Is that the one with the island? I can't remember.
No, Surrogates is with Bruce Willis, and everybody is at home, shut up in their house in these pods, that they experience life through their robotic self in the
Gotcha,
outside world.
gotcha. I
So
don't think I've seen
they have these robots that they live through while they're at home, but the robots is out.
that.
Keith?
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So I was just thinking about that. How at the end, at the end of the movie or towards the end of the movie, people start coming out of their houses. You start seeing the real them, and they're all like old and shabby. Yeah.
Yeah,
They ain't seen the sun in months and stuff. So I'm just thinking, like, if the metaverse uh, will entrap us to that degree, I'm not. We have to be intentional, like you
yeah.
said,
You got to
about
be
our
very
time and what we're doing.
yeah, because it's easy to get caught up. Because that's another like I love games and everything, but I don't even play games hardly at all. Like
Yeah.
anymore. Is because I know what kind of a time sink it can have on an adult life. Like my daughter,
Oh my God.
she plays game. Well, they both play games, but not to the extent to where they absolve their life. You know, because we just don't let them. It's like, all right, give me your phone, go play. All right, go do something, go make
Nah.
something.
Nah, I'm
So
thinking about all the sessions that me and my friends had growing up, all nighters and stuff on the
yeah,
games and stuff.
yeah, I already know. That's why I don't do it. It's like I've been there. I ain't trying to be there again. So
Yeah. Yeah, so being, you don't have to be anything big as far as like setting up boundaries and being intentional
mm-mm.
about your time that helps you manage your thoughts, which can help you stay, hopeful. And one of the things that I do is have my meditation moment of mindfulness every morning,
Yep.
and I guard it like a junkyard dog as far as, hey, give me these 10 minutes, please. 10 minutes of silence. I'll wake up early. I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure I get at least that 10 minutes of sitting at the table with the coffee and just chilling, And then after that, we're off to the races as far as everything else, as far as life. But setting up boundaries and setting up some things in your life that'll help you cope and deal with, that'll help you not get distracted and help you manage. That goes a long way. And some other points when it comes to hopefulness and cultivating it is, as we talked about, having a deep sense of community, having a deep sense of belonging,
Yep.
and feeling like you're accepted for who you are, feeling like you're valued for the person that you are. That goes a long way as far as being hopeful, having a sense of ownership, being free to express yourself, and knowing what can be controlled and what can't be controlled. That goes a long way too. Planning ahead, and having the ability to live outside of social labels. I thought that was a big one. She says people who do not get stuck in labels or the way society tries to define them often have more hope. And it goes back to being self-empowered and not getting caught up
Yep.
in the defined category or label that you're supposed to carry or be with respect to whatever characteristic you may have. Um,
Yeah, and it's like one of the things that is an interview with Kanye West with and Sway in the Morning, and no, actually it was on it wasn't Sway in the Morning, it was the Breakfast Club where he was talking about reinventing himself every 10 years, and going back to the whole label thing is a lot of times, and I know in the Western culture, I've only lived in America. We define ourselves by what we do, right?
yeah,
We define ourselves by our career path or whatever. And so when you decide to change, that can be very hard mentally in terms of, especially if you gain some sense of leverage or acclamation or whatever. It's very difficult for a lot of people. I know I went through that shifting from financial technologies to animation and entertainment. It was like, okay, I'm known as doing this, so how can I go from here to here? And it ain't like I had to physically go do something. It's just
yeah,
mentally that's where
yeah,
the block was, right? And I was like, why does it even matter? And then once I got to that point, it just freed me up to pursue the things that I wanted to pursue. And so for anybody that's going through like, being labeled a certain way, I know a friend, his name is Marshall. He's like 6'6", 6'8", somewhere between there. And he was like, I didn't want to play football, right? I didn't want to play basketball. I wanted to do poetry. And so that's what he did, and so it's a lot of things like that where people think you look like you should be doing something, or they peg you to be one thing, but it's like, no, that's not me, or that's not even me anymore. I've decided to go this way. And again, the reason why that's so freeing is because you have autonomy over yourself again, right? It goes back to empowering yourself and having ownership of yourself to the degree like, okay, I can, do what I want. I'm free to go do this thing, and we're not talking about anything detrimental to other people,
Right.
but in the sense of just redefining your life, redefining your direction, and even think about it from the standpoint of like, I know it's a little tangent, but like breaking family cycles, being deciding to be the one that's not going to go down the same path as everybody in your family,
Like
right?
the Taylors are known for this, but like, well, I'm not doing
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And so even that is freeing because you realize you don't have to be stuck or worried about somebody else's label of how you should be
Hey,
or
Miss
how they
Cheryl.
see you. And so again, just take advantage of that freedom that we have. I know we have here. Other countries maybe not so much. I don't know. I don't live in those other
Mhm.
countries, so I can't speak on that. But again, I know for those living in America, those are the opportunities that you have, is to redefine who you want to be and who you are in terms of the direction of your life, and how you pursue happiness, so to speak.
Yeah, and today we're just talking about hope and cultivating hopefulness in your life so that you can have thought insurance when it comes to going through tough times. Given that the world that we live in is throwing a lot of hurdles and obstacles at us, it's essential that that we cultivate hope to the best that we can in today's world. And man, so I was going to ask the audience, whoever's listening, what is one thing with respect to 2022 that you're hopeful about, that you're looking forward to, you have an expectation about when it comes to 2022 with respect to the last year? And I'll say that for me, one thing, I got a few, but one thing is I'm looking to be fitter and more healthier and stronger and more resilient as far as my health is concerned with respect to 2022. We've talked about it, that I've gotten a personal trainer back in June, and I only do it once a week. But that once a week, it has helped, and I have seen my progression is being documented.
Nice.
And one thing about the trainer, this trainer is, he writes down all the numbers, the reps, the weight. He writes down everything, documenting my weight. So I can see the progression, and I'm looking to be as resilient as possible, so that I can be hopeful about the coming year, and with irregard of what
Yep.
variant or whatever comes along. My mindset, is hopeful. Now, I don't know about my body. I don't know how strong my body really is now. I can talk one thing, but when my body meets the real thing, what's going to happen? I don't know. But I'm hopeful and living in preparation, in high good expectation as far as my health. So Shauna says that getting physically fit, more tethers cut, and having a flourishing garden that cuts out 90% of my grocery trips. Dang, that's huge. 90%. And especially with inflation being 90% these days, you're going to
Yeah.
break
No.
even. You're going to break even. Congratulations. Yeah.
Also
Also
agree.
being more prepared. Yeah, that's something to be hopeful about as far as doing the things now, like you said, your garden. That's something that will help you, is helping you be more prepared with respect to what may come or what may not happen in 2020. And just looking at the trajectory now, it's not looking too good as far as the prices. Like I said, as far as inflation, I know many of us are feeling that inflation when we go grocery shopping. It's like, I just got ketchup and mustard. Why is this $100? Kids, we're living off condiments now.
Yeah, we're learning to live without it.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, she said nice.
Nice.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm hopeful for the upcoming year is, of course, I'm always thinking business and finances.
Yep.
And so I'm looking to, my goal is to triple my income over the next year. And so I'm looking forward to that. I've been planting plenty of seeds, and I don't care what the situation is in the economy. I believe that I'll hit those goals. So,
Yeah. If you listen to the messages, the economy is not doing things is happening and this is not working and this is getting held up. But irrespective of all of that, as far as the show and the outlook that we have is it's the best of times and the worst of times, and we focus on the best of times
it's
and
just times. Yeah, and so like I don't even pay attention to the news because I just focus on what I focus on. And so my wife said, being prepared encompasses a lot, not just economic collapses, even a broken foot. Yeah, that's true because that's what happened to her. She broke her foot earlier this year. But again, it's just being prepared. And again, that goes back to community again. If you're a lone soldier and you have a calamity to where you can no longer work, then that's gonna derail your plans quite a lot. And so that's why community is very important. So others can help you pick up the slack where you need it. And even from the perspective of identity and being labeled, don't think so highly of yourself to where you can't ask for help. Because sometimes you may be the one helping other people, and you can't get past your identity of being the helper to ask for help. So even in that, just being able to ask for help from other people, that's very important. So make sure that you build yourself a community in terms of friends, whether it be a virtual network, whether it be a physical network, whether it be through a church, whether it be through a community center, whether it be through work, whatever it is, you make sure that you find other individuals that you can relate to, that care about your well-being and that you can care for theirs. So in case any of these hard times do come, like I said, it doesn't have to be a total collapse of the economy as a whole. It could just be you breaking your leg and you can't do the work. Right. And so just having that backup of people to help and look out for you, it goes an extremely long way. So do not take that for granted. Seriously. You don't want to
Yeah.
look for community when you're at the bottom. That's the wrong time to be looking.
Yeah, when you said economy collapse, just made me think of one of the things I always think of is that there's always a Goshen in Egypt somewhere.
Yep.
So no matter how bad Egypt gets, in Goshen they were still living okay.
Yeah, life is great. Like Egypt going through a famine for 7 years. They're like, oh, it's great here. So make sure you build those inroads with people, because again, I cannot overemphasize that enough. Community is extremely important. Seriously.
Yep. So in closing, Leif, just wanted to come on and have a conversation, starting off talking about hope and cultivating and building a hopeful mindset. And just thinking about an article that Dr. Carol Leaf had on her blog on drleaf.com, and she goes through some of the points as far as cultivating hope in your life. So yeah, in today's world, in any time, it's essential if you want a good life, a good thriving life. It's good to have hope. Cheryl says, for me, being more conscious of good health and wellness and taking steps to be consistent in reaching and maintaining good levels. Yeah, it's always good to be hopeful and have a high expectation as far as your health and well-being. And that's not only talking about physically, but talking about emotionally, and talking about mentally, and then talking about spiritually too, as far as your sense of purpose and connection to something, to God, to something that's bigger than you, and that your life has purpose spiritually speaking. And mentally, we want to make sure that you're thinking clear and rational and with logic. And then with our hearts, we want to make sure that we are always able to bounce back and have an open heart that's ready to, give love, be forgiving, and be at peace. Bounce back to that. And then physically, as Cheryl says, you want to be physically fit and have health and wellness about you. So, Lath, that's all I got for today.
Let's wrap it up, sir.
All right, two shot guys in the mic, just having a conversation. Hopefully, you got something out more than what you invested as far as your time. We don't take what you spend with us and what you give us for granted. You could be somewhere else, but you chose to be with us, and we definitely appreciate that, and we're grateful. So before we sign off, Cheryl says, second, have the majors words I speak being positive energy in my atmosphere and others. Speaking positive in your life, speaking words of positivity in your life, it goes a long way. Even though that may not always be possible, I'm sure there are times where you are cursing, maybe, I don't know. But as much as you can, cultivating words of positivity in your life, and that words become things. So that's definitely important.
Which is why we always try to have a positive spin on life anyway, because there's so many negative things in this life. The last thing you want is more of that negativity being put in your ear. So we make it a conscious effort to always focus on the brighter side of life.
Yep. I used to say, as you scroll through these internet streets, we want to make sure that we drop a pebble of positivity in your shoe, in your sandal. Like, oh, what's this? Oh, this is positivity right here. I like this.
P.O.P. I love you, mama.
P.O.P. Pebble of positivity. All right. And I think peace. We're out.
Later. We appreciate you.